Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to a special edition of BlackUSA.News, the weekend edition. We have with us Nkechi Taifa. Good morning, Queen. How are you?
Good morning, Donnie. Good to see you again.
All the way from the District of Columbia, and Jay Wyndal from across the jurisdictional line in Baltimore County.
I'm right here in downtown DC. You've been here. Downtown Baltimore.
Oh, he's been
here before.
He's in the suite. The warrior lawyer. Hey, Jay Wyndal.
How you doing, Donnie? Good morning.
Blessed by the best, brother. Blessed by the best.
I know that's right.
So, Nkechi, before we go too far, let's plug your book.
All right. Well, my book is called Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. Came out a couple of months ago.
Man,
What's it about, Nkechi? We didn't ask you the last time.
Memoir.
It's a memoir. It's about a girl who becomes a revolutionary becomes a lawyer, and a lawyer who fights for justice. Hey.
That's what I'm talking about.
What can I say? Basically, it traverses my life history. I was greatly inspired by the Black Power movement and went through all the different movements of my day, the anti-apartheid movement, the Black studies in the classroom movement, the movement to free political prisoners, the reparations movement, right now the movement against mass incarceration, and all of those help to inform the lawyer that I am today.
Well, Jay Wyndal, what have you been up to lately?
I've been trying to write a book for 12 years.
Do it.
I'm nowhere near where you are. I wrote the ending, but I haven't even gotten to the beginning. I'm going to have to hire somebody to help me with that. But what I've been up to, fighting for justice, man. Fighting for justice, trying to keep the criminals on the street where they belong, and and all that other good stuff, man. Just trying to maintain the right of every citizen to do wrong and be treated fairly.
Billy 1 2 3 4.
But you ain't even interested because your ass is on the phone. I don't even know why he asked me a question, didn't get on the phone.
Jay Wyndal, why you do him like that?
I guess I'm home. I'm at Donnie's house.
He don't even know he's on the air live.
Yeah, I'm at Donnie's house. That's how you get treated when you go over to Donnie's house, man. He invites you in and then go upstairs and take a dump. Forget that you downstairs, come back an hour later. Like, hey, man, you still here?
Oh, y'all so bad. Y'all so bad. Nkechi,
hey, home of the free, country of the brave.
Okay, so can we touch this trial? Nkechi, the last time we had you on, we were talking about Derek Chauvin. Where are we now?
All right, so last time we were on day 1. We're about to go into day 6 now, and it's becoming increasingly clear with respect to the defense that this is not a trial about Derek Chauvin. They trying to make this they putting George Floyd on trial. That's what they doing. They putting the victim on trial as the villain. I mean, can you get more of that joogie boogie? I mean, I'm just saying. What actually is on trial, really, y'all, is justice. Justice is on trial. Just us is on trial. That's what is the situation as I see it playing out right here, right now, today.
You agree with that, Jay Wyndal?
I didn't give him that much credit, to be honest with you. Basically, this is they're in survival mode. See, the way I see it is that you haven't heard from the defense yet, and you're not going to. The jury made a decision in the very beginning that they can remain fair and open-minded, and and deliberate on all of the evidence. So basically, what the defense needs to do is get through the state's case. This case, I've been saying it a million times. It's going to be a beauty contest. It's going to be a battle of the experts. Who has the best experts? That's what it's going to boil down to. It's going to boil down to medicine and physiology. That's really what the case is all about. So all this stuff in the beginning, and it's got to be compelling, because if it wasn't compelling evidence at this point in the case, then we all would be very concerned, be like, this case is not going anywhere. There's too much reasonable doubt, and he's going to be acquitted. We know that there's really what George Chauvin did is indefensible. So what is left? You have to argue the stuff that you can't see, the stuff that the scientists can grapple over and see who comes out on top. Now, in terms of what we've been presented, it's been very emotional. It's been very persuasive. And as I said before, it's been very compelling. You've had, you started off with those who were on the scene, who were actually taping the events. You had an MMA fighter who presented great testimony. And my professional crush in the entire case so far has been Genevieve Hansen, who was the EMT officer. I thought that she was handled very unfairly by the judge at the end of her testimony. I thought we actually witnessed in the courtroom some sexism, because the way the judge got on her after she finished beating the brakes off the defense, he started to berate her about the way she responded to the questioning, but I never saw him doing that, berating any other witness at that time in that way. I thought the judge was inappropriate in his handling of her. I thought it was very sexist, the way he tried to berate her before the world. And she, notwithstanding this, these are just some of the challenges that women and minorities face in the courtroom. She still held her ground. She was unflappable. She was unmovable, and her testimony was beyond reproach. So I really appreciated, the way she handled herself. The police experts that came on after the fact, they were solid. I thought that Plover, I think his name is Plover, he gave a little room for the defense to argue when resistance stopped. But at the end of the day, none of that stuff is going to matter. So what you see in a case is just like boxing. You're watching a boxing match. And what the defense wants to do is take the state out in the deep waters. They're going to start putting on their case. They're going to start getting active around round 6. Halfway through. So what they have to do and what they continue to do is just paw. They're just pawing with a jab. And they're just jab. They don't have to knock them out with a jab. It doesn't even have to be a sharp jab. Just a little paw jab. The right hand comes when the state rests their case. And so when their right hand comes, that's going to be in the form of expert testimony. And I'm not saying it's going to be enough to win, but this case really never was about winning. It was about being convicted of the lesser included offense. And they may have a shot if the experts can create enough doubt that the jury is questionable or there's reasonable doubt as to whether the second-degree murder charge should stand or the third-degree murder charge should stand. I'm sorry, the second-degree murder charge should stand or some other lesser offense should stand. So it's going to be an exciting case. I'm not too far done because the state's case has been compelling at this point. It better be compelling. Because if it wasn't compelling, we all would be sitting on pins and needles. But we still have to wait for the defense. And as a defense attorney, and even the grandfather, Billy Murphy, knows, no matter what the situation is, we always have something. We never go into trial. If we're going to trial, we never have nothing. And our ability as defense attorneys is our uncanny way of making something out of nothing. We can turn anything. We can turn straw into gold. We can turn anything around. You give us enough time, we put the right pressure on people and provide the right scrutiny. So you still have to wait. You're not out of the woods. You still have to see what the defense is going to say. So that's my point.
We've just been joined.
How do you think the defense has done so far?
C plus. Because like in anything else, boxing is my best analogy to law. Styles make fights. And my style is not that style. Maybe that style plays well in Minnesota. I like the fire and brimstone. I like passion. I like when you're really fighting for something. That's what appeals to me. The pedantic type of questioning and just this, turning the hot water up like a frog and like a frog boiling in water. It just doesn't appeal to me. It's boring. And so when the defense takes over, at least in my cases, people are raising their seats, and yours too. I've seen it in action, Billy. People are waiting to say they listen to the state, and then they want to see what's Billy going to say. Everybody's at the edge of their seat when Billy talks. When the state's talking, everybody's laid back. But when Billy comes up to speak, everybody's at the edge of the seat. Okay, what's he going to say? And we don't get that from the defense. We just like, okay, what's he got for this? There's no excitement. So that's what I like to see in trials, excitement. But if I was judging the case, that's not my style. His style is not mine. It may appeal to the people in Minnesota. It doesn't appeal to me, but that's, if I'm judging, he gets a C from me. C plus. Because he ain't got nothing to work with in terms of the state putting on their case right now. All he can do is cross-examine. You got to be very careful how you cross-examine some of these witnesses, because some of them are sympathetic, so you don't want to beat up on them, but you want to just want to paw. Like I said, you just want to paw that jab. That's it. And just keep them at bay as much as you can until you get to your side of the case. Then you come through with your right hand.
See, my style is a lot different than this guy's style. Mm-hmm. First of all, I go in for the kill on the first witness that they call, set the tone. And you can do that in a number of ways. And they tried to anticipate that he would do that by putting on witnesses that would be more difficult and sympathetic to cross-examine. But you don't cross-examine them on their credibility. You cross-examine them to set the theme of your defense. Mm-hmm. And so you want the jury to know where you're going, how everything fits that they're trying to prove fits in with what you're trying to prove. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is you have to show who's the dominant fighter. Yep. And so when you don't sit there like a bump on a log, you make objections. And so much of the testimony has been objectionable. It has been in defiance of the laws of evidence. Everybody on the defense side seems just to be sitting there like bumps on a log, letting all kinds of inadmissible testimony come in. That's way to their disadvantage. He could have scored so many points if he understood the rules of evidence and simply insisted that the judge make the prosecution follow him. And, he should be citing case law. He should be saying under the case so-and-so and so-and-so, Your Honor, it's improper testimony. Can we approach the bench? Can we have a sidebar? I mean, I would do everything in my power to show that I was the master of the law and that you have to look at me no matter what else is going on as the number one authority on what should be happening and what fairness in this trial is all about. He has totally missed that opportunity.
So let me just say this.
I'm sorry.
Go on, Billy. I'll chime in after you.
Well, you see, the other thing that he hasn't done is he hasn't really injected the element of surprise into the case. And so what I do in cases like this is because there's always going to be some surprising testimony, always. And I would just generically prepare them for being surprised by something. I'd say, there's going to be a surprise in this case. And you're going to know it when you see it. And it's going to change the complexion of what's going on. And everybody's going to be talking about it throughout the first part of the case. What's the surprise? What's going to happen? My Lord. And then you do things to deflect the attention. You stare at the ceiling. You have an associate there pointing at something in the ceiling. I mean, there's so many tricks that you can do. But this guy's totally unaware. He is a generic defense lawyer who's getting $1 million from the defense fund that has been raised to put on his A game. And if this is his A game, oh Lord.
So, it's like in my mind, I'm going through some what I call like some psychological jiu-jitsu or something. And I'm saying that as a defense attorney background, of which you all are as well. It's hard for me to even say defense. I'm always talking about prosecution, bad prosecution. Yeah. So I'm trying to untrack my mind to, prosecution good, defense, bad. And Billy Murphy, as you pointed out, the defense has a whole economic force behind them. They have a FOP paying for the defense. Most of the time, defense attorneys don't have that. They don't have those type of resources at their disposal. And even at that, as you all both have pointed out, they've been putting on a very lackluster defense. But I submit, I thought it was because they ain't got nothing. What they got? I mean, how you going to really tear a teenage child witness apart? How you going to? I mean, there's an expert on the stand, a police sergeant, lieutenant, whatever expert that says the use of force was too much, that it went too far, that it should have stopped, that the situation should have been reevaluated, reassessed, recalculated. I mean, how do you come up against that? The only thing that I could see that the defense did that caused my eyebrows to wow, and of course they don't mean nothing, really doesn't, but in terms of the eyes of the public, when girlfriend says, oh yeah, well, yeah, he called me mama. That was the first surprise I ever, that's the only thing I can see them even trying to hammer in with respect to in their closing argument. I can think of nothing else. Nothing else.
You're not going to get anything else because they don't have anything. What the defense should be trying to do is rush this case to the real battleground, the experts. All this, tarrying and parrying with these witnesses aren't going to get you anywhere, except you may end up turning off the jury if you go in hard on the wrong one, or you ask that 13th question that you should never ask. And that's just whatever that question is, one too many. Then, you need to make sure you get away from that. Bring the fight to where you want it. Bring it to the center of the ring. You have to bring it to you have to control the tempo, control the fight. So if you don't really have much to add, or if you add something, it's not, or if the witness hasn't hurt you because everybody saw it on tape, they saw it on film, get it to where the fight is. Let's get to the fight. The fight is going to be the experts. Let's get there.
Well, the other problem that the defense has is that they don't have a theory that fits the prosecution's case. See, the first defense you look for in a criminal case is the easiest defense. And that's where you don't have to tear down what they're doing in order to make your point powerfully. And the second is where you make a minor adjustment to their case without having to tear down much. And the third is that you have to tear down the guts of their case. Their defense seems to be that they were not the cause of death. And so everything you do should be based on that defense. That means you don't have to tear down much of what they're doing. And so in cases like this, my approach is very often, no questions, Your Honor.
Right.
Stand up, put my hand up like that. In other words, they haven't laid a glove on me, and
right.
Keep doing it, and then that builds up the anticipation about what you're going to do, because you're basically saying what they're putting on is, it's nice, it's all well and good, but it's irrelevant to the defense in this case.
Right.
And you've got to set that up. And that's why the strategy should be object to the improper testimony. Make that a controversy that the commentators are talking about. Make the specter of, is this case going to be one on appeal? Is the judge making mistakes? That's a distraction from their case that you want to create. And then when you roll out your expert testimony, that's where you're the master of the witnesses. And they better be damn good at cross-examining some of the scientific stuff that I anticipate that the defense is going to put on. Mm-hmm. And so far, I think the brother who was the assistant state's attorney who gave the opening statement, he's probably time enough for the expert witness testimony, but we'll see. We don't know any of these lawyers. And so you can be surprised by the low level of cross-examination that they provide in this case, because this case is going to be won on cross-examination of the defense experts, and it better be, because if they are ineffective in dealing with them, that's going to inject reasonable doubt. Right. But on the other hand, I think that they're going to lose. I think the defense is going to lose. I think the case against this guy is overwhelming, and I think the jury is a good jury for victory in this case by the prosecution. And I think that everybody is affected by the fact that the nation is watching this case. And so if there were a prejudice caused by the broadcast, I think it would be in favor of the prosecution, because I think there's going to be a level of fear on part of the jury to come back with a verdict that's going to piss everybody off. And they know which verdict that would be. And so there's a lot of pressure on this jury to, I think, come back with a guilty verdict.
Yep. Judge, attorneys, we've been joined all the way from Detroit by Judge Leonia Lloyd. Judge, good morning to you. How have you been?
I've been fine. I had a little technical difficulty. Sorry about that.
Detroit. I got family there.
Okay. So, Judge Murphy, this is Judge Leonia Lloyd. She has a book. Judge, do you happen to have a copy of your book?
Yeah, I've got one. Hold up.
Judge Murphy, she had a twin sister, and
very good.
Okay.
Okay. We got something like that going on in Prince George's County with Danica Cotton and what's her name? Anyway, the Cottons, I can't even remember her name. That's a shame. That's going well.
Jay, Jay
But
Wendell, Judge Leonia has a lot of experience, not just in helping to reverse mass incarceration in Detroit and Michigan, but also she's worked in the music industry. Tell us about that, Judge.
Yeah, I did that for 10 years in private practice. And my sister and I, we kind of looked at getting people that were unknown and working with them. And the first and the largest group we did was a group called Ready for the World.
okay,
And they did that Oh Sheila song, and that was the group Unheard of Little Boys out of Flint, Michigan. We also, though, represented some icons like David and Eddie of the Temptations. They were, of course, out of the
David
Temptations.
Ruffin.
David Ruffin.
Okay,
Eddie Kendricks, right?
okay.
And then we had a DJ who helped break Prince here in Detroit and throughout Michigan. That was Mojo. And Mojo was, we called him an artist. He wasn't just a DJ. He was an artist. And we had an unprecedented contract we got for him. So he had total control of the airwaves, total control of what he wanted to do, how many times he wanted to play something. He was not confined to anything. And that was pretty much unheard of. Still is today. I mean, they tell him what to play, when to play it and all that. Not him. And that's how he broke artists. And Prince was one of them. So Prince became friends with him. So it was an interesting ride in the entertainment world for us. Yeah.
All right. Well, nice to make your acquaintance this morning.
Nice to meet everybody. Hi. Hi. I was sitting
So
here listening.
what did you think about the Chauvin trial? What do you think is going on in that courtroom? How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm also a past drug court judge. Okay, I did that for almost 15 years. And I know that they're trying to say he did not die because of what, Chauvin did. And that was pointed out by Bill Murphy, that he didn't die of what he did. He died of something else. And they want to throw it with drugs, etc. And saying that he had a drug addiction. But the bottom line is that he was a functioning addict, and that is not uncommon. And the fact that the drugs that he had in his system, he tried to make it sound different for a layperson who's on that jury, who listens and says, well, he had an addiction to pills, but he went and overdosed on heroin. The pills, the base of the pills, they're all opiates. They're all opiates. It's just that when you are taking them, you get so dependent and so used to them that after a while, they don't take effect unless if the one pill worked, now it needs to be two. And it continues like that, particularly over a period of time and dependency. And when the doctors have been restricted because of the fact that they can't be a meal anymore, a pill mill. So they don't want their license ripped. What happened is that the people that were on these prescriptions, they ran out to the streets to get heroin. I had many cases of suburbanites coming into Detroit, going to a dope house because they ran out of their.
You got it in Baltimore too, and that's what I say
yeah.
about people from Baltimore County. People from Baltimore County say Baltimore City people come out there committing crimes. Well, your people coming to our city committing crimes. They come here buying and selling drugs. So there you have it. So yeah, all too familiar.
Exactly. So don't paint him like he's some kind of drug addict. You're trying to put him in a picture as though he's just one of these addicts hanging out, shooting up, et cetera, et cetera. That's not, but that's the picture. He's kind of throwing it out there like that. But the bottom line, the amount of force that was used, that was the thing that killed him. That was the thing that was totally unnecessary. And and I agree with Mr. Murphy when he said it comes down to the experts, what's going to happen when they bring theirs on. But they're bringing on the detectives which is very strong testimony, when they're indicating that what was done was totally unnecessary, not something that he went rogue. He went rogue. He decided to do what he wanted to do. And the question in my mind was, after you got him in that car, why didn't you take him to the station? Why didn't you take him to the station? and they could have easily booked him there. Why did you pull him back out? Now, maybe I'm missing something, because that first day I was going in and out. I had different things happening here at home, but that was totally unnecessary to put him on the ground like that. But then once he put him on there and he was laying there, basically, down to the ground, face down to the ground, as all of the witnesses testified that were police officers, that at that point, that force that was used was totally unnecessary. And it boils down to that. That force was deadly force. And that deadly force caused the death of him, not use of drugs. That did not. The fact, it was kind of interesting showing him in that store, bebopping around at the counter, et cetera, that he wasn't in any distress. Even when they put him in the car, he said, "I'm claustrophobic." The ride from there to the police station, he could be claustrophobic, but he won't be dead. He's not going to be dead from laying back there. But the bottom line is that force that was used, they can't get around that. The force that was used was totally, totally unnecessary. And he was dead on the scene. As all of the testimony came in from the paramedics, he was dead already when they put him in there. Not he died later on or anything like that. But when you've got, even though the experts, they were trying to, the police, that they were trying to minimize the effectiveness of that Zimmerman officer because of his time on the force, I didn't think they did an effective job, because he stressed that it was totally, the restraint on him was totally unnecessary.
What's so incredulous to me is that the defense actually is trying to insinuate that the officers felt threatened by the crowd, the so-called crowd, the 6 or 7 or 8 or so, mostly young people who were simply telegraphing their abhorrence to what was going on. We know what a threatening crowd looks like. A threatening crowd, a threatening mob is what happened on January 6th with the storming insurrection of the Capitol. That's what a threatening mob looks like. Not what you saw on the street to George Floyd. So when Billy Murphy, Jay Wyndal, you Judge Leona are talking about causation and what needs to be proved. Yeah, what was the causation? He already had drugs. He'd already been using drugs for a long period of time. It never killed him.
Right.
He already was suffering from high blood pressure or whatever the other
comorbidities
he was suffering from. That didn't kill him.
Right.
But what did kill him? 9 minutes and
29
seconds. That was the actual cause of his death, of his murder. No way, shape, form, or fashion blip.
Well, you see, this whole business about the crowd is a dumb move by the defense, because the crowd was telling them to stop doing to this man what they were doing. And it didn't affect them because they didn't stop doing it. And so I don't know what the argument is that the crowd affected their judgment. No, they said, get your knee off his neck, get your knee off his neck. You're killing him. And the response was, the so-called affected response was to ignore the crowd and keep doing it. The second thing is that, the prosecution can argue, what a coincidence. This man died on the street from something other than your knee on his neck for 9 minutes. And so this is a lightning strike. You're saying that what happened was just something that should have happened because of his drug addiction. No, fool, we can see what caused it. It was his knee on his neck and the refusal to take it off.
That's what I was going to say.
You were indifferent to the whole thing. So the prosecution has answers to every argument that the defense is going to make, which is why I think ultimately they're going to lose.
Well,
I'm not worried about this case like the Rodney King case, because there you were in a county that was hostile to black people. There was not the run-up that we've seen all over the country from cell phone videos. There was not this outrage about what had happened that permeated the community that's going to make the decision like you have here. You have people here who have been affected by the trauma of what's going on. And I don't care what they said during the voir dire. You know how they're coming into the case, viewing the case. They're coming in viewing it as something that's a horrible tragedy that needs to be redressed in some form or fashion. So I think this is going to be a guilty verdict.
Yeah, I would expect.
I want to just play. I just want to propose. It seems, from my lay perspective, I'm the non-lawyer here, but from a journalist perspective, there seems to be a formula, Mr. Murphy, in America where you pay the family off $27 million and then you let the officer go. Why is that not going to happen here?
Well, it's up to the 12 people. It's not up to it's not up to anybody but the 12. They're going to determine whether the evidence is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and I think they will. This is a very different atmosphere from the other trials that we've seen, because this city is depending on justice. Look, trust me, the judge is praying for a conviction here. He doesn't want to be skewered and pilloried. The press is praying for a conviction. Everybody's praying for a conviction to get this black eye removed from this particular state and city. And so you have the forces now combining to want one result. And they want to shut the racist part of this city and this incident down for all time. So I see the pressure as being totally for conviction.
But let me caution everybody. We have not heard from the defense, and maybe it's a caution in theory as opposed to what's actually going to take place. But I'm expecting a real fight at some point in this case. I just can't subscribe to the notion that the state is just going to roll over these cats. And maybe I'm giving the defense too much credit, but I'm thinking if they're resourced and their resource is fairly substantial, they should be able to bring in some highbrow individuals who can provide some substantive testimony that, if nothing else, it mitigates the harm maybe it mitigates the depravity of it all, because the depraved heart aspect of it has been seen over and over again with Chauvin on his neck. But maybe the defense, on the other hand, have locked themselves in because, again, as you said, Billy, their entire theory is that, on May 25th of 2020, George Floyd was going to die that day. And whether he encountered Derek Chauvin or not, he was going to be dead on that day. I think that strains credulity. I think it defies credulity. So I think at the end of the day, I'm sure they're not looking for a full flush or a royal flush. They just want to come out with the lesser included offense. And I think that's where they should focus their attention, because they're not going to walk away from this. I don't think anybody believes to this point they're going to walk away from it, no matter what the experts say. But if they can create some doubt with the medicine and the physiology of George Floyd, who appeared to be a healthy, guy, like Judge Lloyd said, someone who was functioning, he worked out regularly, and he was a functional drug user. So, but
they don't have to, as we all know, they don't have to prove, the prosecution doesn't have to prove intent, just reckless, just depraved.
That's what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing. I'm saying something. I'm not, even if it's not second degree, which I think they, what they put on, there's enough evidence to support it at this point in the trial, and they're not even finished putting on their case. Nonetheless, we, as a defense attorney, you got to wait your turn. We got to wait their turn. We got to see what they're going to say and then make our judgments. But if we had any doubt about the case at this point, before where we are in this case right now, then we would be in a world of trouble. But because the evidence has been so compelling, kudos to the state so far.
Well, I hope the prosecutor is a good cross-examiner, because he's going to need to be.
Yeah, you said.
When the defense puts on its experts. And so many cases fail because of the low level of cross-examination ability by the prosecution. Let's face it, Wyndal. We've all fattened our records on incompetence. And I have an old saying, just because you're shooting fish in a barrel, it doesn't make you a marksman or a fisherman. And so we'll see whether or not the prosecution is up to the task. Now, in terms of the design of their case, so far, so good. I like the fact that they're fronting all of the things that they think will be weaknesses in their case, as well as the strengths, because in the end, the weaknesses don't matter if you're trying the case psychologically correctly. And look, on the other hand, Jay Wyndal, we have fattened our records, fattened them, because of our ability to cross-examine their people and to knock them down on the ground during the state's case. But I haven't seen that yet.
I think the whole
Billy makes a very good point. But what both of you do, and it reminds me. And again, we're looking at where society is in this particular city and state mentally, because they're jurors. And when we had a case called Malice Green, I don't know if you all remember that. And Kim Worthy was the prosecutor. You are correct. How sharp is the prosecutor going to be when the defense puts up their case? Do you have a prosecutor who can go for the jugular vein? Kim Worthy went for it. Kim Worthy was up to the task. And in this city, that was the first time officers were convicted of a crime, of a felony, and were locked up. Well, here's what happened. Yeah, the city of Detroit was the jury pool. That was underneath court rules that court was created. As soon as those officers were convicted, the writing to them for white people was it's on the wall. If all these cases keep coming in front of this jury pool from the city of Detroit, we're going to have more officers going to jail. And that's correct, because in fact, if they're doing what they want to do, they have unleashed authority out there that no one is checking. Then a jury, if in fact you don't have the right kind, then they can continue doing it. Well, Detroit had said, stop. We are going to check you. A prosecutor that was excellent at doing her job. And then what did they do? They went, the state legislature changed. They took that court, put it in the circuit court, and then they said, now the jury pool will always be Wayne County. We're going to stop these white officers.
Make it predominantly white, right?
Correct.
But you know what? Today it wouldn't even make a difference, because Detroit is going through the same thing Washington D.C. is going through.
I know, right. They want our city back. I know.
Yeah, they do. And it's a beautiful city. And those homes there, those Victorian homes, man, they are beautiful.
They're trying. They're putting things in place with this. That hopefully is not going to happen. Not on that large scale where all of a sudden it turns into. I mean, I even driving downtown, I've gone through some shock watching folks on their little skateboards and stuff like that. They were afraid to come into the city of Detroit. Now you act like you own the street, like get out the way. Here I
told you. Everything below the 8 Mile, right?
Right. I'm like, I was in shock. I just kind of was in shock. It was after 5 o'clock. And normally I would go home, but I came back to eat in downtown. And what I saw was just totally mind blowing. And I work down there every day. But the bottom line is that's how quick the city was changing. And the restaurants, everything it's totally rebuilt. Everything is totally rebuilt. People are investing into downtown Detroit. But for COVID, it was changing so fast. My girlfriend and I, we would take pictures just going out to these different new restaurants all of a sudden, putting it on Facebook, letting people know, hey, guess what? This is in our city now. This is in our city. Look over here. And people were asking me, where were you at, Judge? Where were you at? I was right here in the city of Detroit.
No, but Detroit's nice. I love Detroit.
But that changed.
Angle just for a second. Billy Murphy was, I guess everybody, myself as well, is saying that this case, there should be no question that the prosecution wins. But I guess my take is that even if we win this case, even if Derek Chauvin is found guilty, we still would not have won. And I say that because we still have, Billy, your sister used to be my boss way back in the day when we were at the ACLU. So we were working on issues of racial profiling. There still will be racial profiling. There still will be no knocking and quick knock or whatever. There still will be qualified immunity. There still will be police unions paying for the defense of officers. There'll still be that 1033 program where military equipment is is going to local law enforcement. So even if we win, and even if we win this one case, we still have many battles to fight for justice not to be on trial in America. That's just my take.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. We're hardly out of the woods.
Right.
We are not out of the woods yet.
Right. This is just one.
And they talk about, this is just one bad apple. He's just not one bad apple. The whole apple tree is rotten. You know what I'm saying? And it needs to be dealt with. I no longer talk about police law enforcement reform. I talk about transformation, because that's at the stage that we're at now.
But I think that victories, great or small, are very important. Not only to me as a person who finds justice to be the most sincere expression of love, but I also believe that our young people cannot afford, or we can't afford to allow our young people to see us constantly losing. Every victory is important, and every victory is hard fought. And so I don't want us to get lulled into a spirit of hopelessness because things don't always go our way. I expect, like everyone on this panel, for there to be some type of conviction. But once you get the conviction, understand that Chauvin's guidelines are 4 years to 12.5 years. Will the judge have the testicular fortitude to sentence him beyond the guidelines? Will he find aggravating circumstances in the fact that Chauvin stayed on his neck even after he was dead, to ensure that his spirit evacuated his body before he allowed himself to rise? Or will he just find that, I'm not going to sentence this officer to jail for the rest of his life? He's either going to do these 4.5 years, 4 to 12.5 years, or someplace in between. So even if we get the conviction, we all want him to go to jail for the 40 years, for the 25 years, or whatever, the sentence, the maximum penalty is. Is that judge going to do it? I have my doubts. Especially the way he jumped on Genevieve, with his sexist rant against Genevieve Hansen. When you see sexism, you can also find racism. That's how I feel. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So I believe that the old boy establishment will protect this man in some way or another, even if he has to sentence him to a period of incarceration.
Well, it depends on how much pain the judge is willing to endure. Mm-hmm. Because if he does the right thing instead of the right thing, he's going to catch hell the rest of his judicial career.
He don't care.
There are people in his ear right now telling him, "Man, you better pray that that you don't piss off these black people and these progressive white people, because if you have higher ambition, you will lose. If you want to go to the Court of Appeals, you won't make it. Everybody will remember." If you're too lenient with this guy. And so people like that, who are his friends, who have his best interests in mind, are telling him, pay attention to the atmosphere, because if you go against the grain, that could be the end of your career.
I think a judge like that, who's probably on the eve or verge of retirement, could care less. A white judge will always get a second chance to get it right. They're always second chance. They get second chance on a second chance to get it right. So I just don't believe that he's at all concerned about his career. I think the reason why he was assigned to the case, because he probably doesn't have to run for another 10 to 15 years, no matter how it works out there. White folks don't have the same concerns as we as African Americans. They can do what the hell they want, and they do what the hell they want. That's why the system hasn't self-corrected, because we have people in place who are old line people who will do what they believe their caucasity allows them to do, and that's be Caucasious.
But I think that paints with too broad a brush.
Okay.
Everybody's different. And you're right to the extent that we may get surprised by this guy. But I think in this particular case, the pressure is too great on him. And he doesn't show me that he is willing to resist the pressure. He's being too nicey compared to what I would presume his normal judicial demeanor is. He's playing to the crowd. And whenever you see a judge playing to the crowd, he's going to be influenced by the crowd.
But you did get a glimpse. I keep running back to Genevieve Hansen and his sexist rant against her.
Yeah, but trust me,
he really was.
Somebody got in his butt about doing that. and say, dude, you stepped over the line. Don't behave like that because it wasn't a good look. Be careful, keep your mug straight, don't interfere, don't overreach. And so he's getting instructions. I mean, look, when you're in a high profile environment like that and you don't want to make any mistakes and you have friends, your friends are constantly in your ear.
Okay. Well,
it's gonna be very, I want to say this, it's gonna be very interesting if this judge, it depends on the moral aptitude he has. And it's very important that, as you all pointed out, is he on the verge of, this is my last term, I'm off the bench anyway, I'm going to do what's right. There's nothing anybody can do to me. I don't want to hear anything from anybody. I remember my sister had a case and she put away this guy for about 10 days before she brought him back to continue the hearing. And she didn't know this, but everybody important in the city was connected to this man. She got caught, her phone was ringing off the hook, including one guy who ended up being a prosecutor, was a very, very good friend of ours, and my sister was taking no call. She wouldn't even answer her phone at home. She wouldn't answer the phone in the office. She said, and they would call me, and they said, I'm trying to reach your sister. I said, Leona's not taking any calls. And I said, you calling about that case about that guy? I said, whoever he is, with all this influence that he has, and he's got all these big wigs calling, I said, she will not talk to anybody. She's going to do what she wants to do and what she feels is right. And she doesn't want to hear from you. He said, but I've been with y'all. I said, she don't want to hear from you. I said, but you can tell me whatever you want. I'm not going to tell her. I said, the bottom line, my sister's got to make her own decision. And this particular guy was an Arabic guy, and when he came back in there, he saw all the strings he pulled could not get him out for those 10 days. And so the whole community, the Arabic community, was all upset. You cannot control this judge. This judge said, I'm going to do what I think is right. And she was looking at a long term. She wasn't looking at this is going to be my last term. Not Leona. Leona was expecting to live a long life, okay? And she was on the bench for 7 years. But the bottom line is that I watched her. And when you got a situation like this man, the whole world's looking at him. The whole world is looking at him. Are you going to do what is right? Or are you going to let your own personal ambitions get in the way? Are you going to try to take the middle of the road? What are you going to really try to do? Are you going, and what Billy is saying is true. It seems like he's trying to be nicey nice, to everybody when they get up there. I watched that. And, but then again, a lot of judges are like that anyway. But that might not reflect on what he's going to do.
So what I really
I just want to about Nkechi, give me a second. We're going to lose Mr. Murphy. He has another appointment, but while we have him, I got to shift gears, Judge Lloyd. Here in the city of Baltimore, we have a Black state's attorney. Her name is Marilyn Mosby. Her husband, Nick Mosby, is the city council president. And I just have to ask Judge Murphy and also Jay Wyndal specifically, what's going on? Why this attack on the Mosbys? Is it because Nick next in line to be mayor?
Let's talk about some history. Whenever you have a pro-Black, unabashedly pro-Black elected official who is not willing to do the white thing, but is doing the right thing, there is a segment of the white community, a powerful segment of the white community, that is hostile to that kind of behavior. It includes the prosecutors. It includes the press. It includes very powerful, shadowy parts of the white community that have been pulling the levers of power forever. And so there is nothing shocking that, as has happened across the country, with Black public officials who stand up to white power, that they're coming to get you. That's part of the definition of the job. That's why so many people have timed out before people like Marilyn Mosby came along, because they know the consequences will be that you're over investigated, that you're going to be put under a grand jury investigation, that every force that white folks can manipulate against you is now going to be targeting you. And so it's not a shock to me that, just like what happens all over the United States when you have uppity black elected officials, when you have the Maynard Jacksons and the Marion Barrys and people of that ilk, that white prosecutors are going to come after them. So there's no surprise here. Now, you ought to know, and maybe you don't, because a lot of it has been done in secret, that people have been coming after Marilyn Mosby left and right ever since the Freddie Gray case. And so I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. It's the playbook. And we've just got to be sensitive to it. We've got to fight back, because Marilyn Mosby has been the most courageous prosecutor we have ever had. Nick Mosby has been the most straightforward, militant person, one of the greatest we've ever had in the state legislature. He had 2 great years in the state legislature. And now he's the president of the city council. He's really bright. He's pro-black. They're coming to get him. Look, you go through it, Jay Wyndal. I've been through it for 51 years.
Shit, I might be going through it right now.
Yeah, they've always come after me.
Of course. But that doesn't justify.
Of course it doesn't.
No, and I know that that's not the point you were raising. However, I think what was most terrifying to this group that has targeted Maryland is the concentration of power that existed in that Mosby name, that Mosby brand. We're talking about future mayor, future congressperson, perhaps even future senator. I mean, they were going nowhere but up. Marilyn Mosby is a rock star, not just in Baltimore City, but across the country. People ask me when I'm out of town in my law conferences, what's going on with Marilyn Mosby? How's Marilyn Mosby? Everybody has respect for Marilyn Mosby. She was one of the youngest and one of the boldest, one of the coldest to come into that state's attorney's office and say to the police, in matter of fact terms, not on my watch. You're not going to continue to mishandle, mistreat our people. You're not going to continue to be corrupt. All these bad convictions because of this corrupt gun trace task force organization. They're coming back to court. We're getting rid of all those convictions, 1,400 cases of minor offenses, the weed that you all have been using to incarcerate our people for a long period of time. I'm not prosecuting those things anymore. We need to focus on the violent crime. That's what we're concerned about. Violent crime, not someone with a $10 sack of marijuana. We don't give a crap about that. But these were the things that were holding our people back, saddling us with convictions, putting us in jail for an indeterminate amount of time, especially during COVID, because you can't get a trial. The only thing you can do to get these things off of you, to get these things off of you, really is to cop a plea. If you want to really try the case because you feel as though you're innocent, I mean, you could look forward to late 2021 or 2022. So Marilyn Mosby did wonders for the judicial system in relieving our courts of the backlog that have come about through the COVID-19 global pandemic and focusing on what's important, that violent crime. So, and I could just go on and on about how she's worked with the mental health courts, I mean, just on and on. She's done wonderful things to get this city jump-started to get people back to their communities, get these fathers back to their children, and work on folks. She had programs for young people. I mean, but like you said, Billy, anytime you see an elected official, doing something to progress the advancement of African Americans, they're going to always come under attack. They're going to be over-policed. They're going to be highly scrutinized, and they're going to be, cast as demons to the community because, quite frankly, they're doing the most, and the structure in place doesn't like it. But I tell you what, she's got my unwavering support. She always did. She's been a rock star to me from the very beginning, and I got nothing but respect for her. And I'm lifting my voice in support of her. It was a time where I wasn't on the cheering squad or the firing squad. I was just standing back and looking. But now I have to assert myself as a man to see these attacks upon not just our women, but our elected officials who really have a love and care and appreciation for our city. I think it's in my opinion, it's just repugnant. So I don't care what anybody says. And at the end of the day, when you go back to 2014 on anybody, you're going to find something. So I'm not expecting, if this thing comes up with nothing, then, you know, I'm just a fortified believer. But even if they find something, whatever it is, it's not going to be substantial. Just like with that whole tax lien, like how many people had taxes that they needed to pay, and $45,000 and that's a pittance with somebody who makes close to $400,000 a year. Pay off the $45,000, make payments for it or whatever you have to do, and it's no problem. They did all these things. This thing really arises out of Isabel Cumming and her flat Office of Inspector General investigation that, quite frankly, I questioned from the very beginning. Even though Maryland invited the investigation from that office, if you're the top ethics person, you should understand that there's a patent conflict of interest that you're going to go after and investigate the office that you use to prosecute the cases that you've investigated for the city. You should know that there's a conflict of interest there. So a responsible, mature ethics professional would have respectfully declined and referred the case to the state prosecutor's office. Well, you know what? The state prosecutor investigated Maryland too. They found nothing. The Office of Inspector General for Baltimore City investigated Maryland. Her investigation fell flat. They found nothing. She tried to find her at fault for a law that was ambiguous and vague, and no one knew how to interpret it. So, you know, just a whole lot of stuff about Isabel Cummings. I just think she's a snake. I think that she's not worthy of the position she holds. I think that, you know, to be the top ethics official in our city is reprehensible, because her ethics have been questionable since day one. And as you saw in the news report that just came out yesterday, she directed the FBI and the IRS through City Hall during the Public Works.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, she let
them in the building. They didn't even have to go through security. She took them up to where they were supposed to go after Nick.
Right.
I mean, that's hardly a neutral, unbiased attitude. That is something that an inspector general of any kind should be bringing to bear. And she didn't even follow the standards of what inspector generals are supposed to follow. Mm-hmm. There's a code of ethics.
Gagas.
She was unaware of what that code was, what it required, and didn't follow it at all. She wasn't aware of the law. She may not have jurisdiction over Ms. Mosby as a separate elected constitutional official. Ms. Mosby's office was created specially in the Maryland Constitution.
Right.
It's an unusual office that she holds. She is not beholden to city government. She is not beholden to anybody who regulates city government. Mm-hmm. And so this whole investigation of the inspector generals, I think, is misplaced, misguided, and illegal.
Yeah.
And one day that will come out. One day that will be decided.
Right. So I just think she needs to be removed from office. She's clearly has abused her position.
Oh, I agree.
She's breached the trust of citizens. Her impartiality has been substantially compromised, and she really just needs to go.
No question about it.
If she really wanted to make herself worth her weight, she would be investigating those minority contracts out there and going after those officials who are not. I got that from you, Donnie, but it's a good point. It's a good point. So I'm either you can say it or I'm gonna say it for you. She needs to be going after those individuals who
has no interest in that. She has no interest in that.
If you're really talking about bringing millions back to the city, bring some money back to those who actually live in the city, who work for the city, who want to better the city, as opposed to those who are taking money out of the city and stealing money from our minority contractors. And Jay
Wyndal, let me clarify something that you said so the listening audience knows exactly what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. What we've been fighting for years as black contractors is front corporations created by white guys to look black, but really are not black. And so they put the money up for these guys, and they don't have any power over the contract, over how it's done, or who gets the money. And they look black, but they're not black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a big scandal that's been going on in Maryland for years. These sham companies that get contracts that real black companies should be getting,
Exactly.
but instead of real black companies getting it and the economy of the black community being improved, you have front men for white companies that have no interest in improving the black community.
Yeah.
And so that's what an inspector general ought to be working on.
Right.
And that is under the inspector general's jurisdiction. And so by now, she's been in that office for how long? 2 years, maybe? A year and a half?
Whatever it is.
By now,
Too long.
she should be an expert in all of the major contracts that are being let in Baltimore City. And she should be an expert in how to stop sham corporations from getting these contracts. But she hasn't paid attention to that at all. And so we know where her focus is bringing down black elected officials.
Exactly.
So it's 10:01. I don't want to steal any more of your time, but thank you for joining us. Nkechi, any final thoughts? Nkechi Taifa, and do plug your law firm.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, well, first of all, I agree with what everyone said with respect to Marilyn Mosby. She's actually quite influential, not just in terms of Baltimore, but in terms of progressive prosecutorial offices throughout the country. But the only thing I was going to say is that I'm really apprehensive that if the judge doesn't do the right thing, if the jury doesn't do the right thing in the Derek Chauvin trial, we would see the epitome of Langston Hughes porn. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or then fester like a sword that just runs? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? That's what
remember what he also said. He said, hold fast to your dreams, because if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly.
Yeah. All right. See, we're not just lawyers, we poets too, y'all.
I recited that poem to a jury in the Charles Hopkins case when Charles Hopkins was accused of going to the city hall trying to assassinate Mayor Schaefer, actually killing one city councilman, wounding another seriously, and causing a third to have a fatal heart attack. And I argued that to the jury. And you know the result. Not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't have to even say it.
Nkechi, you got to plug your book here. Plug your book.
All right. Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. And yeah, your sister in the book too, because she was one of my mentors. My website, www.blackpowerbblacklawyer.com. You can get it from Amazon, Sankofa Books, wherever books are sold. Thanks a lot.
Judge Leonia Lloyd.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Don.
Judge.
Thank you, Jay Wyndal. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Nakia.
Thank you for having me.
Judge Lloyd, you gonna plug your book?
Oh, I just won the Book Excellence Award as well, and that was in Ontario, Canada. Here we go.
Very good.
Thank you for motivational.
All right.
Jay Wyndal.
Thank you all. Donnie, thanks for the invitation to discuss these issues. I've been trying to keep myself abreast in case anybody calls for a conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate being here and love what you're doing in the community.
Judge Murphy, thank you for your support. Any final thought? Thank you.
Well, we've got to be a strong community. We've got to be united against the attack on our elected officials. We've got to be united in favor of police reform. We've got to be united in favor of eliminating mass incarceration. And we've got to keep plugging. There's no excuse for anybody in our community to be silent and to do nothing. We all must do something.
Right.
Those are our final thoughts. We thank you for joining us on BlackUSA.News. My name is Donnie Glover. We'll be back Monday morning at 10 a.m. for BlackUSA.News. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you for all you do.
Yes. Thank you, big brother. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, Donnie.
Same to you. Same to everybody.
Take care.